Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here to do the SmackDown recap that took place on July 11th, 2025. This is the go home show to both Evolution and Saturday Night Main Event. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We kick off the show with LA Knight, who starts off the show and in the middle of the ring, and he is then quickly joined by Paul Heyman after saying that his attack on Seth from Monday was just not enough. They are then joined by a group now known as MFT, standing for My Family Tree, which essentially was the new bloodline. Probably a good call to have them called something different because eventually Bloodline was going to get redundant, just as it has. I think we just talked about this last week. It's seemingly nonstop, for years now. So I don't think the name is super creative, but at least it's a faction name. So we have something there. And then after they join Solo Sikoa and his new group, they then tell Paul Heyman or offer Paul Heyman to leave, which he gladly accepts before getting thrown through another table. They then offer the same to LA Knight, but LA Knight claims the crowd won't let him leave. And as he's about to be ambushed, he's then joined by Jimmy Uso, and this all to set up a main event by Nick Aldis for a tag match that will feature JC Mateo and Solo Sikoa, LA Knight, and Jimmy Uso. So, his best Teddy Long impression, setting up a tag match for the main event, including the now known MFT. So, a little more of the same. But then we go on to the next match, which is a setup for the Fatal 4-Way Women's Tag Team match that's set to take place at Evolution. One from each team with Alexa, Roxy, Kyrie, and Sol Ruka. I love that Charlotte's really hamming up this tag team. I don't think I've ever really quite seen her play this face role to a degree that she is now. So I think she's kind of going all in. And I will say that I think this is for the best. I think that was part of the issue. Obviously, Charlotte makes a better heel by nature. I think we can most all agree to that. But I think she's really ramping it up to try to give off that pure baby face kind of gimmick, and I feel like it's working now because before it was, her gimmick really wasn't that different. It was just I'm a face now, and I'll give you a high five on my way to the ring. But other than that, there really wasn't much difference. Whereas this angle really does feel like she is the face. So I feel like this is a step in the right direction. Obviously, with her being a part of the tag team division as well, all these in the right steps because what they were doing before as a face just wasn't working. So all this in steps in the right direction, in my opinion. But as for the actual match, I was happy to see Kyrie. She looked much better this week as well. I don't think I caught any big, miscommunications, which with four of them in the ring, all the more possible. So maybe just a bad couple of weeks there. Maybe the injury bug that kind of seemed to be following her around there for a bit. Maybe that's got into her head a little bit. But yeah, she looked a lot better here. So I was happy to see that. And also noteworthy, Sol Ruka, I felt like she just gelled extremely well here for, not being on the main roster yet. You couldn't tell it. She fit right in. So I'm excited for her future because I think, once she does get up to main, I think that's a sign of things to come, big things in her future. And as for the actual end result, we see all the other four members that will be involved on Sunday get involved a little bit. And then the ending with Alexa Bliss hitting the sister Abigail on Kairi Sane, surprisingly enough, because they were just mentioning her winning streak, I think, on Monday. So, but yeah, Alexa and Charlotte getting the win here, and they're I can't remember the official tag, but it's like not friends, just acquaintances, or convenient acquaintances, something like that. But yeah, I'm quite a fan of the group that we've seen so far. The next segment we have is a tag team match for those tag team championships. Street Profits putting them on the line up against Wyatt Six's Joe Gacy and Dexter Loomis. This was another really good match, and I feel like I was surprised. I think that's fair to say. Um, to see the Street Profits lose their titles here, I think it was inevitable. I just didn't think it would happen quite yet. Um, But yeah, I particularly am, more of a Street Profits guy than a Wyatt Six guy. I think that's fair to say. But then we see the rest of the tag teams in the back kind of realizing the worst case scenario has come true. The Wyatt Six have taken those tag team titles, which they've been telling that story for seemingly weeks now. We let's not let this happen. Let's do our best to not let that happen. And here we are. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of take that forward. If this will be a super long run by the Wyatt Six, or if this will be everyone's against us, so we can't really hold on to a title. But KP, what are your thoughts on what we've seen here so far? Solo's new faction getting a name, the Fatal Four Way with the women, and of course your new tag team champions.
Yeah, I think with the change of name for Solo and his group, I think that was probably needed at this certain point. Being away from the bloodline as well as like an actual like name and like a classification, I guess we could say. Yeah, that's a smart move, like you said, and we mentioned beforehand. You don't want to get too many of these because you already had OG Bloodline, Bloodline 2.0, whatever the new Bloodline. There are a couple of things we could describe those as. So yeah, to not have like I don't know, like 4 or 5 different renditions of near enough similar things, but obviously with different people, I think is a smart way of doing things. So yeah, MFT. I mean, yeah, I like the sound of that. It's got like a nice ring to it. So yeah, it's pretty good to be fair. The sort of like interactions between them and LA Knight and Jimmy Uso, yeah, quite interesting. Obviously, building towards a few things going forward with that respect. With Jacob Fatu currently not being around in the situation after the attack last week. But yeah, I don't mind it. I think it was a nice start to the show. It's sort of like raised the intensity a little bit there, and yeah, move things along nicely. A bit more on the tag match later on between Knight, Jimmy, and Solo and JC. But yeah, for now, not a bad start to the show, and yeah, good way to kick things off. Into the first action of the night with Alexa Bliss picking up that win in that fatal 4-way, like you mentioned. Yeah, this is good. I thought this was a good way to, keep things moving along steadily towards Evolution. This has been one of the matches that we haven't really seen like a tremendous amount of build of, but like not like just because there hasn't been much at all, but like it's hard to book around like 4 different teams at the same time, especially when one of those teams is NXT. And we just recently had the qualifiers, to earn those opportunities to get to Evolution. So, and that literally goes back to just this Monday with the Kabuki Warriors. So, yeah, there hasn't been like a whole lot of build, but this just sort of like allowed it to sort of like have like an extra little bit of flavor going into the event. And I think it did a really good job. Like you said, Sol Ruka looked great for her first time on the main roster. She, just slotted straight away in very nicely. Her finisher always, is one that's talked about, and rightfully so. It's a great bit of athleticism, and it looks good as well. Hitting that double there was nice as well. So yeah, really good moment for her. And yeah, I just thought the match really gelled together well. Kairi Sell with the Sister Abigail DDT I thought was pretty cool, actually. I think it almost looked like she tried to get out of it, and then like Alexa still like somehow managed to like keep her in it and then hit it again. But I quite liked that. It showed like a nice little bit of a difference in like selling the move per se. So yeah, no, I was a big fan of the matchup, and I think it did a good job as what it needed to do. I've been super critical of the Wyatts recently regarding the whole tag team division on SmackDown being so strong and in depth, and the Wyatts coming in and just tearing the whole thing apart. And just I don't know, just I said that I thought that they took some steps back with the introduction of the Wyatt Six into this whole group. I'm not going to say that this is a step forward, but I wouldn't say this particular match was a step back. Personally, for myself, I would have liked the Street Profits to have held on to their titles and to have had a good run. I think that, they're a team that is so incredibly talented and so consistent with wherever they're meant to be. And they haven't really had a title reign that's, I think they deserved, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And they held the titles for, I think it was something like 119 days. I could be wrong, a couple here and there, but I think it was something like that. And that seems to just fly by. Honestly, that was really, really quick. I don't think there were really that many memorable moments during the reign either. But this match itself was fine. It was good. It was fun. It was a good match. Like, I'm not going to say that it was bad. I thought all 4 men really went out there and put on a good show. But yeah, I think what for me is what I want to know is how the Wyatts will take these titles going forward. Like, will they bring the division up with them, or will they try and get away from the division? That's what I want to know. And as long as they're going to bring the division up with them, then I'm more than happy to get on board with them and see where this goes. but I can't help but feel that from what I've seen so far from them, they want to sort of like just separate themselves from this really good tag division that's been developed, and they want to just get away from that. And I hope that's not the case. I really, really do. But we'll see. I'm happy to see where it goes. I'll give them a bit of time, and we'll see what the situation is. Maybe in like a month or 6 weeks down the line, whatever we get to. But yeah, let's see how it goes. But I'm optimistic nonetheless. It was a really fun match to watch, and yeah, new champions crowd, very interesting.
Yeah, I think no matter what way you fall with the tag team division, I think it's clear to say yes, we did take a step back because everything was built up to that and then tore apart by one team. Obviously, that's not a good look. But if they can make it work, we'll wait and see, I guess. But yeah, moving on to the second half of SmackDown. This next segment is, if I had told you it, you weren't watching the show, you might think I was making it up. But nonetheless, get through it. Jellyroll appears, and I guess because that's his hometown, we had heard rumors about him wanting to get some in-ring action in. And at the time, I don't keep up on him at all. But at the time I had started hearing those rumors, I was gravely concerned. He's a fairly large guy. Didn't strike me as someone who would be able to perform in the ring, in WWE of all places, of course. But then having seen him at the beginning of the show, I realized, and Randy kind of alluded to this as well, he's lost a ton of weight. But still, losing weight does not make a superstar in WWE. But regardless, it does appear that's where we're going here. Jellyroll starts performing to his hometown crowd in Nashville, and he's quickly cut off by Logan Paul, who comes in and says, "We don't accept outsiders, and that ring is sacred for those of us to take the sport, seriously." Which is great. Obviously, him saying that is uh, obviously Logan Paul is the exception, but it still makes that whole hypocrite thing work very, very well. And then Logan is cut off by Randy Orton, who is then cut off by Drew McIntyre. This was random as hell, but clearly that's a direction we're headed now. Just a matter of when, I suppose. But we'll have to wait and see how that one works out. Yeah, this is interesting. Logan being with Drew is interesting, and I think just as interesting as Brandy being with Jelly Roll. I think just some things I never thought I'd hear myself say. But anyways, we move on. We get the match that we've kind of been working up to with R-Truth and Aleister Black. A couple weeks now, I feel like we've been working on this one. And to be honest, I don't know if this was a product of the 3 to 2 hours on SmackDown, but this was very, very rushed. It ended up, I don't even think it was 5 minutes, but regardless, the finish came from R-Truth bringing in a chair, and then Aleister took the chair, and then the ref took the chair from Aleister, and then as the ref's doing that, R-Truth rolls up Aleister for a pinfall 1, 2, 3. So the day has arrived where we see R-Truth outsmart his opponent, which is something. And then the fallout from this match, we then see later Damian Priest is telling Aleister, the match is over, let it go. And then Aleister says, oh, well, after knocking down Damian Priest, and then says, I guess now I'm over it. So clearly setting up, we've kind of been flirting with that as well. Damian Priest and Aleister Black, I guess, setting up our next feud. I just don't understand why we did the whole bit with R-Truth if that was our finish. So that was kind of strange, and yeah, didn't really care for that match, obviously, too much. We then get a promo with both Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus being interviewed by Wade Barrett. Nothing groundbreaking here, but Tiffany and Trish both kind of provide the reasons. Tiffany provides the reasons why she picked Trish, and then Trish reminds her that she's the GOAT for a reason. A reference to a VHS tape, random as well. And then TikTok reference as well when Trish's comeback. So some lines there, but I think the overall takeaway here just kind of giving us some sort of build to that match, which obviously hasn't had much to date. We then get interrupted by Naomi, who comes to the ring, is going to remind everyone what I assumed she was going to say was to proceed with caution. but she is quickly cut off by Jade Cargill before she's able to get out her message. So that's our big build outside of the tag match for Evolution. More of the same, really. But it is what it is. Let's just get to Sunday and hope that they can deliver. We then get to our main event, which is LA Knight, Jimmy Uso versus JC Mateo and Solo Sikoa. And with this, we also find out throughout the night that Jimmy Uso now gets a U.S. title shot at Solo Sikoa at Saturday Night Main Event. So increasing that card by one. Let's see. Nothing really groundbreaking here. I think that's fair to say. It feels like we've had this main event about 300 times over the last year. I know we haven't, but the match itself was good. And then the ending, and you're on the right recap here. This is a SmackDown recap, but the ending, we then do see Braun and Bronson come in and take out LA Knight, and clearly trying to loosen him up for their match at their night main event. But yeah, it's funny to see. We always see one faction on one show, one on the other. Well, now we get to see Seth's faction on SmackDown. So I thought that was a good bit. And then obviously his faction standing tall over LA Knight. Take that for what you will with the go home curse. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out on Saturday Night Main Event. But yeah, KP, an interesting second half to SmackDown. I think that's fair to say. Care to give us your thoughts on Jellyroll being in WWE and whatever that match was with R-Truth, Aleister Black, the lack of build with Evolution, and the main event?
Yeah, there's a whole lot to discuss right here, right now, and I think opinions will definitely be coming out here quite strongly. Starting off with the Jellyroll and Logan Paul segment with Randy and Drew. I'm going to be straight up honest and say that I'm just not a fan of where this is going. I think in this current dynamic with WWE, you've got so many incredibly talented superstars in the back that could have an opportunity to have a match at SummerSlam, and we're going to be bringing in people like Jellyroll to fill a spot instead of a talent that would like to be on the card. I personally am against that. I know it brings more eyes from other places onto the product, and maybe it brings in more money and money talks and all that jazz. But as the common fan, as somebody who wants to see, a good show, a stat show, depth across the entire card, and not just have like one segment be committed to appeasing a few people who like this certain Nashville superstar. I don't know. I'm not really particularly in that mindset. Yeah, I mean, what I will say is the segment was quite fun. I did quite enjoy it. Actually, I thought that the chemistry between Jellyroll and Logan Paul was actually really good. So I will show some credit to that, and I think there was there were some good lines in this segment as well. Logan Paul being a hypocrite and delivering the promo that he did, I thought was quite funny. From that sort of stance, I did find that quite interesting. And then obviously Randy coming in to defend anybody with any sort of sense of rationality. I thought that was quite quite telling how passionate he was delivering what he had to say. But yeah, Drew and Randy continuing their rivalry, their feud, combining now with Jellyroll and Logan Paul. It's interesting. Like I said, I'm not particularly happy about it, but this is the way that WWE is right now, and I guess they'd rather care more about this than actually sort of like doing the right thing. It's all about the money, and that's all I'll leave it there. The following matchup was interesting. We go down to 2 hours on SmackDown, and you expect some matches to be shorter now, to be cut in terms of length, some feuds to maybe not have the the highlights that they could be getting. R-Truth v Aleister Black is an interesting one, because I think off the face of it, you put Aleister Black and R-Truth in a feud together, and in any other year, this is very much a case of what is R-Truth doing? Has he maybe got mixed up with the wrong person? He said the wrong thing. He's got a bit too happy. But this is a different side of R-Truth, and he is a lot more calculated now, a lot more focused, a lot more centered around being in the driving seat, as he likes to say. And this was calculated. He got the chair, and that was a distraction. It caused Aleister to lose his focus, and after the roll up, it was R-Truth scuttling away, which was just something that we haven't seen from him in a very, 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 very long time. So no, this is quite fresh. Although it was short, that's my main critique from this. It was nice to see R-Truth playing into this new character that he's going into. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is a nice step in the right direction for Truth. And Aleister Black, a little bit of interaction with Damian Priest after this one, very frustrated, taking his frustrations on Damian Priest. Obviously we've got that step in the right direction for him now as well. So that'd be good. Yeah, I think this is a good segment, although it was a bit short. Speaking of short things, the Evolution build hasn't been, exactly lengthy for a lot of matches, and that includes Tiffany and Trish. I'm not gonna lie, this segment was just okay. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't bad, but it was just sort of there. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was fine. It did what it needed to do. It built up two people who have sort of a bit of respect for one another, but also want to push those boundaries a little bit more. And obviously, they want to sort of like try and rile each other up. And obviously, you mentioned the VHS tape and the TikTok references. So they sort of like they put a step further in that, which I think was probably quite needed. And then Naomi and Jade getting involved at the end and, getting into that whole situation. Maybe took a little bit of the shine away from these two women here building up their matchup. But like I said, when you've cut down SmackDown to 2 hours, they sort of combined two builds here in the same segment. And I guess that's smart from WWE. It makes sense. So yeah, it's like I say, you got a lot to try and squeeze in 2 hours, and Evolution has suffered because of that. I think we can safely say. And then, like you said, the main event, yeah, it wasn't anything special. It was fine. It was good. And it did seem like maybe like a Raw type main event, but we actually got a finish. There was no DQ, so that's something. It was a roll up, but it was not a disqualification. So I guess you can take that as a positive. But yeah, the post match beatdown, Braun and Bronson hitting spears and the tsunami. It's just it's a classic ending of Monday Night Raw, like you mentioned. So yeah, we'll obviously see where this goes into Saturday night's main event, where LA Knight takes on Seth Rollins. Jim Uso, pinning the United States champion Solo Sikoa. That could obviously get him an opportunity going down the line, possibly very, very soon. So yeah, I think there's a lot to take from that. But yeah, like you said, nothing too crazy. It was okay. It was fine. SmackDown, I think as a whole, it was okay. There were some moments that were good, but there were a lot of moments that I don't particularly agree with, or I didn't really rate that highly. I'm not gonna say it was a bad show, but it was all right. It was fine. And I'll probably give it a 6.5 out of 10, purely based on that. It did feel like a go home show, but when it's only really the women involved and a little bit with Saturday night's main event, I don't think that's a good thing for this week. But hey, this is what it is, and this is the direction that WWE seems to be going right now. Seen things I disagree with, but that is what it is. But yeah, what did you think, Nick? SmackDown, it did a few things here and there, building into Evolution and Saturday night's main event. But do you think it was in the right direction? Or do you think maybe they've missed a few little tricks here and there?
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, to start off the show, building to a main event that we've seen countless times. It feels like that took like 15 minutes of the show, which when you're down to 2 hours, didn't really need to do all that. Could have just announced the show, and that could have been that. I think that's fair. And because of that, you have the shortened R-Truth Alistair match, and then you also have an Evolution build that's shoved into one segment. But I think you could have easily have dispersed that time a little differently, a little better. And then obviously the jelly roll stuff, for whatever reason, WrestleMania and SummerSlam always seems to have some sort of celebrity involvement. I kind of thought that would end with Vince, but clearly it hasn't and or won't. But we'll wait and see on that. But yeah, overall, this was the definition of a go home show as we know it. And yeah, nothing groundbreaking, nothing I'll remember here 2 weeks from now. But yeah, I give this the 6 out of 10. Yeah, just kind of was just there, unfortunately. Again, these rushed PLEs, I think this is just kind of how it goes for now until we get a full build. Yeah, I think 3 weeks to SummerSlam, so kind of a full build, but at least better than what we've been getting. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But yeah, this is the SmackDown recap, and this has been the push with Nick and KP. We will be back shortly for a NXT Great American Bash recap, as well as a Saturday Night Main Event and Evolution reactions as well. But until next time, we'll see you then. Take care.